Victoria's Anti-Corruption Commission today released its report into rorting public funds and found extraordinary and shocking misuse of taxpayer-funded staff for political gain as a routine part of Labor's unethical factional battles. The Commission did not actually recommend criminal charges because, and I quote, under the present state of things, unethical behaviour is not sufficient to support a potential prosecution. Still, while it had only investigated Labor's right faction, it found enough to conclude that branch stacking and the misuse of staff was happening across all of the factions. The Commission also confirmed it had grilled Premier Daniel Andrews in private, something he's never previously admitted to. And the Commission found that the Premier had been aware of widespread rorting of membership and the misuse of taxpayer-funded staff, quote, from the time when he worked in the ALP head office, but it noted that Mr Andrews exonerated himself by making, quote, a distinction between having suspicion about people who might be engaging in the practice and actually having knowledge of specific people who had engaged in the practices. That was enough for Daniel Andrews to say he'd personally been given a clean bill of health. Now, the main target of the Commission's investigation, former Minister Adem Somyurek, has always maintained that the Premier, as a former Assistant Secretary of the Labor Party and a left faction boss, was up to his eyeballs in all of it, something the Premier, unsurprisingly, has denied. When Daniel Andrews was directly asked today whether he'd personally engaged in branch stacking, he refused to answer, saying that he was looking forward, not back.
IBAC releasing your full transcript.
It's a matter for IBAC.
But are you comfortable if they go down that path?
It's a matter for IBAC.
That's always been the Daniel Andrews playbook. Deny that it's got anything to do with you, claim the problem's been solved anyway, so nothing to see here. He's not Mr Skullduggery. He's claiming today he's Mr Clean. That's, of course, when he and his ministers can remember.
I'm not making any comments about these matters, and for a third time, let me make it very clear to you that I'm not making any comments. Sorry, I'm not making any comments on these matters. I will not be making any comments about these matters. I will not be commenting on any of these matters or matters that are related to them.
Now, the idea that Daniel Andrews has been removed from internal Labor matters, to me, having worked inside a political office, just doesn't ring true. After all, the bloke's been at the centre of the Victorian Labor Party for about 25 years as a branch official, a factional boss, an assistant Labor Party secretary, then of course an MP, a minister, the party leader, now the Premier. None of the bad stuff he wants you to believe has anything to do with him because he's Teflon Dan. And because he's not only going to implement all of the Commission's recommendations like a cross-party ethics committee, a parliamentary integrity commissioner, all of those, he says, I'm actually going to go further. He would legislate, he told us today, to deny public funding to any political party that doesn't have ethics safeguards in place, such as making membership payments traceable, so no cash, let's say credit cards, and requiring would-be members to produce photo ID when joining.
So that it's not a function of the rules of a party, it's the law of our state. You know, best efforts are being made to audit the lists, to make sure people are who they say they are when they join, that they're paying via traceable means, and there may be lots of other things that can be added to that.
The Premier's press conference today was a masterclass in spin and flim-flam. So this requirement to produce photo ID, as he announced today, if you want to be a Labor Party member, is pretty funny because Labor says it would be undemocratic to require people to have ID to turn up to vote. But somehow today, when he's in a bit of a bind, it's the best thing to do in order to be a Labor Party member. I mean, seriously. Today, former Labor Minister Adem Somyurek, who has also volunteered himself to be questioned by police over his declared misconduct, unlike Daniel Andrews and unlike any of the ministers, Well, he described all these integrity bodies as useful idiots and said that they'd ended up running a protection racket for the Premier. Somyurek's not exactly a clean skin himself, but at least he's been honest about it. And it's hard to disagree with his assessment. At least today, Adem Somyurek looks like he's the only one telling the truth. Now, in the end, the best way to deal with a bad, rotten government is through an election. And that can't come quickly enough. The question is, will Victorians vote this bloke out or fall for his spin yet again?